see if you bastards can do 90.
Alright. So that was my review for Friday the 13th Part 2 from 1981. And I had seen the original Friday the 13th quite a while ago. And I've seen parts of, I want to say, number 3. And then I saw the remake, the newest remake of Friday the 13th. But in general, I never really watched a lot of the sequels to, like, the Halloween movies or Nightmare on Elm Street. I'd seen the originals for most of those, but I never got into watching the whole series, even though I've been, aware of them for a long time. But since it was October and I like to watch horror movies, I decided to maybe give some of the other Friday the 13th movies a try. So I just watched this not too long ago. And it follows the plot of the original one very closely. So, I mean, really, I don't have to get into the plot too much, but instead of Camp Crystal Lake, or yeah, I think that was the camp name as well. This time it's another group of kids that are going to a camp, and it's on Crystal Lake, but it's a different camp. So it's a different summer camp than was on the original Friday the 13th movie. It's like across the lake or something. They kind of explain it. But same plot, a group of young kids, or a group of teenagers, late teens getting ready to be counselors at a camp, and they're there early to get some training and whatnot, get the camp all ready to go for the campers when they come. And I mean, it's pretty straightforward, similar to the last one. I guess this time, one of the biggest differences, of course, the twist kind of on the first movie was that the killer was Mrs. Voorhees, Jason's mom. And so this time, she's dead. If you don't remember, spoiler alert, she got her head cut off in the first one. But this, this takes place... Okay, I guess this is where I'll say the plot is very, very different now. They kind of... After this movie, they kind of mess with the plot and the mythos, I guess, of Jason. Because... Well, it starts out, actually, the survivor from the first movie, Alice. There's a whole long scene, like a cold open of her in her house, like, trying to recover or whatever from the ordeal from the last movie. And she gets attacked and killed right away in the beginning. But then it brings up this whole question of, did Jason really drown? Because, that's the whole story that his mom tells in the first movie, that her son drowned when the counselors weren't watching. They were off having sex. And so that's what she's doing. She's getting revenge on these people for not watching her son. And that's the whole reason for her kind of killer rampage in the first movie. But this time she's dead and it's Jason that's doing the killing. So it brings up the question, well, did he not drown then? Because we kind of see him at the end of the first movie, that there's that scare where he comes out of the water and attacks Alice in the boat. That's a pretty famous jump scare. But he looks pretty young in that too, so it was like, was it a hallucination of her or what? Because here he's a fully grown, so, and at the least, like an older teen, I guess. You don't really see his face, but it just kind of makes a whole weird plot hole into the story. And I think I also started listening to a podcast where they do a lot of movie retrospectives. And so I was listening to some of their podcasts about this Friday the 13th and the first one. And I think they mentioned that some of this confusion about where, like, how Jason survived or whatever gets explained in some of the sequels. So maybe that happens. But in this one, it doesn't. It's just kind of a question that's up in the air and makes you wonder what is going on. I think he gets a lot more mythical powers, like later. Probably satanic stuff, I'm guessing, because there is one called Jason Goes to Hell. But anyways, for this one, he doesn't have his hockey mask yet, which he's, so known for now. It's so iconic. Him wearing the deteriorating hockey mask. He doesn't have that. He wears a bag over his head for most of the film. And it's pretty interesting because he falls down a lot in this. He's not like the hulking, slow walking killer that you think of, kind of like Jason, of course, Jason, or like Michael Myers. They walk and they can still catch up to you even though you're running. It's not like that in this one. He's kind of running around and chasing like a normal person would, and he falls down a lot. He gets tripped up, and it kind of adds to, I don't know, just makes him seem more like a normal person, like a normal serial killer or something. Just kind of has mom issues, and maybe saw her decapitated. Who knows really what they were going for, but so I thought that was really interesting because most of what we're used to, I guess I've seen like the Freddy vs. Jason movie as well, and those are just these two powerful, monstrosities that can't really be beat, and they're just, indestructible. But that's not what you get in this. It's not the kind of vibe you feel from him. So it's interesting. I thought it was interesting anyway. I didn't think when I was watching it that the individual kills, each time someone got killed or whatever, was anything super impressive. They were okay. But then I was reading about some of the making of it a little bit more, and apparently a lot of things were cut for it to get an R rating. So I think there might be an unrated edition out there, but I can't remember. But anyways, they had to cut a lot of the graphic nature of the kills to get like an R rating and not an X. So that'd be interesting to see what like the unrated version would look like now anyway, because some of it can look just a little so. And overall, I'd say it's just like it's a mediocre slasher. It's okay. I'm giving it a 2.5. So that's right in the middle. It's decent. It'd be interesting to really see what happens after this one. I think, just from looking at pictures, he finally gets his mask, the hockey mask, in the next installment. I also think that one has Corey Feldman in it when he was really young. I remember seeing parts of that on TV and stuff or whatever when I was younger. So, I don't know, since it's not October anymore, we'll see if I get to that anytime soon, but I'm sure I will eventually. Kind of more interested in following this series than I am some of the other ones. I think I was kind of planning on watching some of the Michael Myers Halloween series a bit more, but I know those kind of take a really steep nosedive. I think these ones kind of are a little more even, but who knows. There were a lot of questions at the beginning and the end of this movie, some of them with Alice. So she, like I had mentioned, she's the survivor from the first movie, and there's like this cold opening where she gets attacked and killed, and you assume that it's Jason, but it's also the question of like, where is she? You don't really know if she's still near the lake area, and if she's not, if she, you'd think she'd want to move away from all that happened. How did Jason find her? Because she seems like in a populated area, not in the woods. There's just a lot of weird questions surrounding that, and they're never answered. It just happens, and then you go back to the formula, back to the camp, and then that leads to a bunch of other questions. So there's a really, really big group of kids. I keep calling them kids, but teens that are at this camp that are going to be counselors. And you think, wow, he's going to have to kill a lot of people, but they get around that or change that by having half the group at least leaving the camp. They go into town. So the only people that get attacked are the ones that stayed back by the lake. So that's interesting, but then it leads to the question, well, the rest of these people almost all of them are killed. What happens when those other kids come back? Or, like, they're just kind of forgotten about. I'd assume maybe they turn that into a third movie. I'm not sure. It's just kind of like a weird way to get rid of a bunch of characters. And also there was a character named Paul. He was one of the main, I think if I remember correctly, he was kind of in charge of getting the camp going and everything. And it's just kind of, it's ambiguous as what happened to him. The whole ending was kind of, seemed like it either cut too soon or they added a couple things on that didn't work out in the end. They just kind of raised more questions. It wasn't all tied up nice in a bow or anything like that, that's for sure. But anyways, As far as I'd say for like the killing, the gore factor, the violence is about on par with the first one. There's more nudity in this one and more like partying. So there's a little bit of that in the first movie, Friday the 13th. There wasn't really much nudity, and they're smoking like a little weed at one point in the first one. But this one, they're all that group that all leaves to go into town. They're all going to drink, and everybody here is drinking and partying, and there's a little more extensive nudity in this one. I think that is another thing that stays a little more even throughout the rest of the series. That level of nudity and stuff. And then one of the things I was just looking up when I got done watching this was, they started making a ton of these slasher movies with Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Friday the 13th. But this one's a little more, I guess this and Halloween are more similar in the fact that they have super low budgets and they end up making a ton of money. I mean, the first one was a huge hit. So the first one made close to $37 million, and its budget was like $500,000. So that's a huge profit. And all these other ones, a lot of sequels, I just looked at their budgets and their profits. Most of them were made for between $2 and $4 million, and they gross between like $20 and $40 million. So you can kind of see why they made so many of them. I want to say there's at least 11 Jason movies, and then if you throw in the remake and like Freddy vs. Jason, that's like at least 12 or so. And you can kind of see why, because super low budget. There's no known actors in these. Kevin Bacon was in the first one, but that was probably his first movie. And there's no known actors in this. I gotta assume most of the money is spent on just the violence, the makeup effects, and unfortunately for this one, a lot of that got cut out apparently. But you can see why people make them. That's usually a good movie for like a first-time director or people to start, as with horror movies, because they can be pretty low budget. And I just thought that was an interesting thing that I learned. So yeah, the only movie connection I put on here is Friday the 13th. The first one, of course, there's all the sequels and the remakes, and you can go to other slashers, the Halloween series and whatnot. I guess the reason I say like Nightmare on Elm Street's different is because that's a super effects heavy series. There's so much special effects and makeup, and going into all those deaths and kills are pretty different and a lot more elaborate. So anyways, yeah, that's about similar as the first one. Pretty mediocre by today's standard, but if you're wanting to watch something for maybe next October, since it's already too late, in the Halloween mood still, just a good decent horror movie, go ahead and throw it on. Or mostly just to kind of get the the history of the series is kind of why I'm doing it. So yeah, 2.5, and that'll be it. Okay.